Now we're going to look at the chart for Paul Allen, uh, Microsoft co-founder, philanthropist. Um, he was born January 21, 1953 at 1400 hours, Seattle, Washington. And if you look to the eastern horizon when he was born, you would see the constellation associated with the third sign, which is Gemini, rising at 8 degrees. So 8 degrees becomes the most effective point of every house. Now the inner circle here, or the birth chart here, uh, that's where the planets were when Paul Allen was born, and the outer circle represents where the planets are now, the transit planets. So any planet that's close to that most effective point of 8 degrees has some impact in his chart. So Sun is at actually 8 degrees, and we're going to look at how the planets are functioning and their strength, and then we're going to look at the timing of events, and then we'll look at remedies that could have been helpful for Paul Allen. Sun is ruling the house of entrepreneurial success, business, and communications. And Geminis are known for their business and communication skills, which he had great skills for sure. So Sun is at 8 degrees, so it's close to the rising sign degree, and it's again ruling this house of business, of communications, and it's placed in the house of research. So and Sun is Sun also represents this house also represents chronic health challenges, which he died of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and had it for many years. But yeah, definitely gave him entrepreneurial success through research into new forms of communication through computers and programming. Moon is ruling the second house, and it is at 4 degrees, and it's ruling this house of wealth and recognition, and it is gave him great wealth. It's placed in the house of partnerships, so it gave him great wealth through his partnership with Bill Gates and the public companies, Microsoft, Vulcan, several public companies that he owned. Moon has to do with working with the public. Mars is at 23 degrees, and it is ruling the house of income, and it's placed in the house of good fortune. So he has income through good fortune, and Mars has to do with property. His Vulcan company owned, a lot of property in Seattle and elsewhere. And Mercury is at 0 degrees. So any planet that's less than 5 degrees, like Moon or Mercury, or greater than 25 degrees, is said to be in old age or in adolescence, and it cannot protect and promote its own significations. So Mercury is ruling the house of happiness and family life. And so he was very close to his sister, and he had good support from his parents, but never really started a family. Dated occasionally, but yeah, had a very, very private life. And uh, and Mercury is placed in this house of the eighth house, which means secrets and private, very private kind of person. Um, see, Jupiter is at 18 degrees, and it's very strong and well placed in this chart. It's placed in this 11th house, and it's ruling the house of partnerships. So yeah, so again, his partnerships with Bill Gates and his sister were very fortunate in his life, um, and I'm sure will attribute a lot to the growth and the success of all his businesses, um, and his income, being in the house of income. Venus is at 25 degrees, and it rules the house of children, investments, and education. And this also is the house of um, entertainment and sports. So uh, he invested a lot in his investments in the Trailblazers and the Seattle Seahawks and the Seattle Sounders, all sports teams, and then DreamWorks, which is a movie company that put out a lot of great movies. Um, Now, Venus is just slightly weak because it's a little bit more than 25 degrees, and it's placed in the house of good fortune. So he had a lot of good fortune through all these companies that he invested in. Uh, Saturn is just slightly weak at 3 degrees. It's ruling the house of good fortune, and it's placed in the house of investments and children and education. So Saturn for him, I think, is really one of his greatest assets because he's a really good, been a wonderful philanthropist, funding all kinds of research into Ebola and many diseases, and he's supported all kinds of different charities. So definitely, um, for Gemini, the only two functional malefic planets, since there are no um, planets ruling the sixth or the eighth or the 12th house, um, the best way to transform Rahu and Ketu so they're not causing harm is through charity. So he definitely was doing planetary remedies intuitively. Now, Rahu and Ketu for him are not actually causing much harm. They are not close to the most effective. Well, yeah, they're at 19 degrees in his birth chart, and they're not close to his rising sign degree, and they're not afflicting any houses or any other planets in his chart, except during transit periods. And so they, K2 gives great intuition into research. He's a brilliant researcher, and Rahu gives great ambition for wealth and recognition. So most of his life, these planets were, or these planetary nodes of the moon were helping him, except during the periods where Rahu and Ketu are transiting at a degree that's very close to the most effective point, and at that point they afflict 5, 7, and 9 houses away. So on the date of his death, October 15th, K2 was afflicting, this house of chronic health illness, which was his. Yeah, and K2 and Rahu can cause cancer, and so the lymphoma is a type of blood cancer, and so and you notice Mars, which has to do with blood, is also in that house of death-like experiences. So K2 is afflicting the eighth house of death-like experiences, and then it afflicts 5, 7, and 9 houses away. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Also a house of hospitalization and death. 12th house. 6, 7, the house of fame and recognition, and 8, 9, house of family, end of family, and Rahu afflicting this house of also family, uh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, house of health, 6, 7, house of death-like experience, 8, 9, end of career. So yeah, so there is no known time for his birth. So this seemed to be a time that went along with different events in his life. During he started Vulcan, this huge real estate company in 2009 during a moon period, and I think during Vulcan, the DreamWorks was during sun periods. It just really made a lot of sense. I think 2009 also he did find out about, now moon is the lymph system, and um, uh, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma affects the fluids in the lymph, and which is associated with moon. So yeah, I think that he was diagnosed with this non-Hodgkin's in 2009, and I think he had it also earlier during a moon sub period. So these are the main points for Paul Allen, and if you're interested in learning more about your chart, you can go to uh, vastucreations.com and under services get a astrological reading. Or if you want to learn about transformational Vedic astrology, you can go to americaninstituteofvastu.com and sign up for a class. I feel this type of astrology gets right to the heart of anyone's chart, and also looks at the remedies. So remedies for him would be to strengthen all of his planets by wearing a kavash, which is a locket containing the yantra, the Devata yantra for all of his planets. And then also, wearing sun colors, which are golds and white, orange type colors, moon, white colors, Mars, red colors, green for Mercury, yellow for Jupiter, white for Venus, um, and blue for Saturn. And then avoiding blacks and grays for Rahu and Ketu, and also helping spiritual organizations and people who cannot help themselves, which he did quite a bit of. So, anyway, thank you for listening.